our very last part of lecture 26 are quadratic story problems. Setting up the story problems is actually just as easy as it has been all semester. We will learn one new thing, and that's the Pythagorean theorem. But other than that, everything is exactly the same as before. It's just that the equation that might arise could possibly be quadratic instead of linear. Up until now, every time you've set up a story problem, it's been a linear equation. Now you might get a quadratic equation out of it. So first of all, let's review the new material. The Pythagorean theorem says if I have a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c squared is the hypotenuse, or the longest leg of the triangle, the leg that's opposite of the 90-degree angle. So let's say we have two boats that leave a marina. One goes east and one goes south. After 30 minutes, the second boat has traveled 1 mile more than the other. So if this has gone x, this has gone x plus 1. The distance between the boats is 5 miles. Find the distance that each has traveled. So do you see a right triangle here? Good, right at the marina. It makes a 90-degree angle between south and east. Okay, so since the Pythagorean theorem tells me if I square the two short legs and add them together, I'll get the square of the long leg. So that tells me x plus 1 squared plus x squared is equal to 5 squared. Now, in order to solve a quadratic equation, the first thing I need to do is get the 0. That means I need to undo any factoring I've got. I've got to multiply that out. X plus 1 squared. Don't make the mistake of saying x squared plus 1 squared. You know that's not right. X plus 1 squared, I have to write that as x plus 1 times x plus 1. Then I'll FOIL it and combine like terms. So I have 2x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 25. Am I ready to factor yet? Not yet. I still need to get a 0. Subtract 25 from both sides. Now am I ready to factor? Yes, what's the first thing I do when I factor? First, get a greatest common factor, so pull out the 2. Then, as the next plus and an x minus, a lot of the problems we're doing today are so simple I'm doing guess and check. The more involved ones are usually what I reserve the diamond or AC method for. But you can do diamond or AC if you'd like, it's fine. Okay, factors of 12, that could give me 1 in the middle. Let's try 4 and 3. Yep, that works. So now set each factor equal to 0. So that tells me x equals -4 or x equals 3. Why did I circle 3? Why not -4? Okay, because I'm talking about distance. Distance is not negative. So you have to interpret these answers in the context of the problem. And if a negative doesn't make sense, then don't use the negative as an answer. But if a negative is okay, then keep it. So that means that this boat has gone 3 miles and that boat has gone 4 miles. Let's look at another example. The sum of the squares of two consecutive integers is 1 more than 10 times the larger. Find all such pairs of integers. So let's make a key. The smaller number is n. The larger number is n plus 1. Remember, for consecutive integers, I'll have n and n plus 1. The sum of the squares. So I'm going to take n squared plus n plus 1 squared is, that tells me equals, 1 more than, that means I'm adding on 1, 10 times the larger. There's 10 times the larger number, which is n plus 1. Now this looks kind of bad, but it's not that bad. We know we've got to undo any factoring that's there. So the first thing I'll do is take n plus 1 squared and write it as n plus 1 times n plus 1 and FOIL. Now I'll combine like terms. And I still remember the first thing I'm trying to get. I undo the factoring so that I can get 0 on one side. So let me move all of those to the other side. So I end up with 2n squared minus 8n minus 10. Okay, now that I've got my 0, I can start to factor. They have a greatest common factor. I'll pull it out, pull out the 2. Okay, that tells me I have a plus and a minus because of the -5. 1 and 5 should give me -4. Yep, that works. Set each of them equal to 0 and solve. So I have n equals -1 and n equals 5. Now I'll tell you right now, the most common mistaken answer is that the two numbers are -1 and 5. No, they're not. -1 and 5 aren't consecutive. Remember, I'm going for consecutive numbers. Well, let's go back and look at the key. If n is the smaller number, n plus 1 is the larger number. So what about n equals -1? So if -1 is the smaller number, 0 is the larger number. So -1 and 0, that's a pair of numbers that work. They're consecutive, and if you plug them in, they work. Now if 5 is the smaller number, 6 has to be the larger. So there are two pairs of numbers that work on this one. Okay, we've got one more quadratic story problem example. The length of a rectangular room is 5 yards more than the width. If 300 square yards of carpet covers the room, what are the dimensions? So here's my room, there's my width, and there's 5 yards more than the width. It says the length is 5 yards more than the width. Now, 300 square yards, is that talking about a perimeter or an area or a volume? Carpet. Carpet, that's talking about the area of the floor of the room. So the area of a rectangle is length times width, W times W plus 5, and it's equal to 300. Now I need to solve this. What do I need first? I need a 0, so I need to undo any factoring, get a 0, and then refactor. So I have W squared plus 5W equals 300. Don't have a 0 yet, move the 300 over. Now I've got a 0. W squared plus 5W minus 300 equals 0. That will be W plus and W minus. Now factors of 300. We can list them all if we need them, but 20 and 15 are going to work. Set each factor equal to 0. Solve them. Now what one makes sense? Does it make sense to have a width of -20 yards? Nope. So I'm going to choose 15. So my width is 15 yards, and my length would be 20 yards. That is the end of Math 990. Have a wonderful time studying for your final, and I will see you in class.